All right, let's dive in. We're looking at Chapter 9 today, The Blissful Devotee and His Cosmic Romance, from Pasted Text.
Oh, yeah, this one looks juicy.
Yeah, our listeners are clearly ready to get deep, themes like devotion and spiritual experiences.
A touch of mysticism, perhaps?
Exactly. And, right off the bat, the narrator paints this incredible picture of Master Mahasaya.
Oh, absolutely. Angelic appearance, silky white beard, those lustrous eyes.
It's like he's trying to capture like an otherworldly presence,
Oh, yeah. And I think what's interesting is the narrator recognizes something more than just human in Mahasaya. He sees him as like a direct link to the Divine Mother.
Okay, so we're already jumping into the deep end here a little bit.
Yeah.
For someone who might be new to this idea, how would you explain this concept of the Divine Mother?
Yeah, good question. So in this context, the Divine Mother, she represents a universal, all-encompassing force of love and creation, not necessarily tied to any one religion, but more like an embodiment of pure unconditional love that transcends dogma.
And the narrator is clearly like longing for that kind of connection, right? I mean, his reaction to meeting Mahasaya is intense. He even compares it to the grief he felt of his own mother's death.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. And that comparison really speaks volumes about the depth of his yearning. He's not just looking for, intellectual knowledge or spiritual guidance. It's almost like a primal connection to something much greater than himself that he's seeking.
And it's that longing that really seems to fuel his devotion.
Yeah.
He basically begs Mahasaya to put in a good word for him with the Divine Mother.
Right. And that act of pleading, that complete surrender, that is a key element of devotion in this chapter. It's not just blind faith. It's an active, heartfelt yearning for connection.
And that surrender is what opens him up to the vision of the Divine Mother, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. Like, by relinquishing his own limited perspective, he creates space for a deeper reality to reveal itself. And his description of the vision, it's powerful stuff. This overwhelming sense of unconditional love.
Yeah, it really is. And yet, Mahasaya himself, this conduit to the Divine Mother, he lives such a simple life.
Right. That's so important. He's not surrounded by opulence. He doesn't demand reverence. He chooses this humble existence as a teacher. He focuses on nurturing the hearts and minds of his students.
So we're seeing this pattern, right? The narrator's desperate plea, the vision, then Mahasaya's very humble nature. It's all pointing to a certain kind of approach to spirituality.
You got it. This chapter is suggesting that the path to profound spiritual experience lies in humility, surrender, an unwavering openness to a power beyond ourselves.
And that's where Mahasaya's teaching style comes in, right? It's not about doctrines or rote memorization.
No, not at all. He talks about teaching a chemistry of love that you won't find in textbooks, which is just such a beautiful way to describe his approach to spreading wisdom, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And that same humility is there in the story about the Champak garland. He initially refuses this gesture of respect, but only accepts it as an offering to the Divine Mother residing within him. What's your take on that?
It just shows his total lack of ego, right? He doesn't see himself as the source of wisdom or power, just a vessel for the Divine Mother to work through.
So we're seeing this theme of selflessness and devotion playing out on all these different levels. The narrator's longing, Mahasaya's guidance, the Divine Mother's presence. It's all woven together with this thread of pure, unconditional love. But this is just the beginning of the journey. Let's talk about the pilgrimage to the Dakshineswar temple.
Yeah.
That seems to be a real turning point for the narrator's connection to the divine.
Yeah, the pilgrimage is loaded with symbolism, the boat journey on the Ganges, the temple itself, but things get really interesting in that tamarisk grove.
Yeah, that's where the narrator has this crazy out-of-body experience.
Right, and it happens while Mahasaya is chanting these divine invocations.
It's like he describes this tangible shift in his awareness.
Yeah.
Being lifted beyond his physical body.
Totally, yeah. And it really shows how Mahasaya's spiritual practice has this direct impact on the people around him.
And the narrator connects this and a few other experiences to this idea of divine mercy. That's a term you hear a lot in spiritual circles, but what does it really mean here?
Well, in this context, divine mercy is basically the boundless compassion and grace of the Divine Mother.
Okay.
This idea that she actively intervenes in the lives of her devotees.
So it's not just this passive force, it's an active presence.
Exactly, and we see it a few times in the chapter, remember that conceited acquaintance who kept interrupting the narrator and Mahasaya?
Oh yeah, the one that just suddenly had to leave when they got to that red house?
Yeah, and it's presented as a direct intervention from the Divine Mother. Mahasaya basically asked her to step in.
Huh, that's wild. And then there's the power outage during that boring lecture.
Right, another chance to escape. And these events, they really make you think you know.
Are we supposed to take these literally? Like, were these actual miracles? Or is there another way to look at it?
That's what's so cool about this chapter. It really makes you think. On one hand, you could say these are literally divine powers at work.
Yeah, like proof.
Right. But you could also see them as metaphors for the narrator's spiritual growth.
You mean like a shift in his perception?
Exactly. These miracles could just be, synchronicities, meaningful coincidences as his consciousness expands.
It's like the chapter saying, hey, here's what happened. You decide how to interpret it. But pay attention.
Yeah, I love that. It doesn't force a single interpretation, but it lets you connect with the text personally.
So it's not just about what happens, but how it resonates with you.
Right. And this brings up another big point. Spiritual nourishment isn't limited to big mystical experiences.
You talk about the tamarisk tree, right? When Mahasaya points out the manna it exudes?
Yes. And he compares it to this heavenly food he's offering the narrator.
So he's using a natural phenomenon as a teaching moment.
Exactly. Showing how you can find spiritual nourishment in everyday stuff.
Like the divine isn't just in temples or rituals, it's all around us.
Beautiful. And it's something we need to remember, especially today when it's so easy to get caught up in the everyday and lose sight of the sacred.
Totally. So if we had to pick out like the biggest takeaways for our listener, what would they be?
Well, I think this chapter really digs into devotion on so many levels. First, it shows the power of surrender, of yearning, like how opening up to something bigger can lead to personal growth.
It's not about forcing things, it's about that deep longing.
Right. Second, it challenges us to think about reality. Are these miracles literal or metaphors? The chapter doesn't give us the answer. It wants us to think about the possibilities.
It's like encouraging us to see things in a new way.
Exactly. And finally, I think it tells us that spiritual experience is available to everyone. You don't have to go on pilgrimages.
It's about awareness, being open to those little whispers of the divine all around us.
Exactly.
It really feels like this chapter is calling us to just be more, in awe of everything.
Yeah, like look beyond the surface and consider that maybe there's this whole deeper reality happening that we usually miss.
Exactly. And to just embrace the mystery of it all, Like the chapter doesn't give us all the answers tied up in a neat bow.
No, it doesn't. It invites us to question things, to explore, to be open to the unknown.
It's like the narrator himself, right? He comes to this whole spiritual journey with this mix of longing and humility.
Yeah, and a willingness to just let go and surrender to something bigger.
And through that, he ends up having these incredible experiences.
And that's something anyone can do, I think no matter what you believe or what path you're on.
It's that open-hearted curiosity that really makes the magic happen.
That willingness to step outside your comfort zone and embrace the unknown.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Blissful Devotee and his cosmic romance, is there one thought you want to leave our listeners with? Something to really ponder?
Let me see. I'd say pay attention to the little synchronicities in your own life.
Oh, I love that.
Those moments where things just seem to line up perfectly. Or when opportunities appear out of nowhere.
So those little winks from the universe.
Exactly. Don't dismiss them as just coincidence,
Yeah.
Ask yourself what they might be trying to show you, what doors they might be opening.
It's like we're being encouraged to really participate in our own spiritual journey, to become more aware and open to those whispers of the divine in our everyday lives.
You got it.
And who knows what we might find when we start paying attention.
Right.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you to your own explorations. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive.
Thank you for listening till the end. Please subscribe, turn on the notifications, like, comment, and share with your friends. This will help more listeners to discover our channel and content.